Welcome to Post-Burnout.com interviews. My name is Aaron Kavanagh and I'm the website's founder and editor-in-chief. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. Our interviews are mainly recorded to be transcribed, but every now and again we release the audio in a series we call Post-Burnout.com interviews. If you enjoy what we do, be sure to subscribe. In this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, we speak with Kieran Pauling of the London-based alt-pop act Kacia. He talks about forming the project, their upcoming debut concept album What If Life Is Just a Movie, the multimedia aspect of the album including music videos and live performances to coincide with the narrative, coming of age during the COVID-19 pandemic, his single Night Out, how comfortable he feels writing personal lyrics, how the album is coming along, celebrity culture, storytelling and narratives in music in the era of TikTok, and more. I also want to note that this interview was recorded in mid-July, and at the time Night Out was Kacia's latest single. Since then the project have released a new single called Plastic Straws. So the first thing I just wanted to ask was, for yourself, how did you get into music? How did you sort of become a musician?
Yeah. It was like a thing at school really for me. I spent years like trying to kind of figure out what it was I wanted to do. Didn't really know.
Yeah.
And ended up at about 13 picking up a guitar. Had like no lessons and started to teach myself on YouTube.
Yeah.
And sort of then found this love for singing. And playing, and eventually that kind of transitioned into working with producers, learning to produce a bit myself. But yeah, keen interest at school really.
Yeah, and what sort were you listening to at the time that kind of kicked off that?
Oh mate, like it was definitely it was weirdly like John Mayer.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I definitely started with like real guitar music
Yeah.
from that aspect, and then I sort of started getting into, like Green Day, people like that while at school. Was in a couple of like little bands at school.
Yeah.
Rubbish.
I can relate.
Yeah, totally. I think we've all been there,
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, really like that sort of music. And then I kind of discovered like alt pop,
Yeah.
got into the likes of like 1975, Laney,
Mhm.
No Rome, Charlie XCX, people like that. And that was sort of where transition happened for me, really.
Yeah. So then when the Cassia project started, or am I pronouncing that correctly actually? Cassia or
Kacia.
Casey? Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of started coming around in about, I want to say 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of started off as like originally I was under Kieran Poling, going under my name. Um, and we sort of transitioned in sound really. Um, Ended up getting like introduced to Jeff over at Salt House Records and stuff. And that was when it really kicked off. But these early songs, Night Out, Young Fun Dumb, they started back when I was about 17.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a long time really, but it wasn't till kind of about just over a year ago that we formed kind of Kacia.
Yeah. And you were mentioning that like you started off learning guitar, but I find your music is very key heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was wondering, when do you make that kind of transition then to the keys?
Yeah, totally. It's interesting because it's definitely going to be something you see the guitar comes out in the next track.
Okay.
Um, but the keys kind of happened when I met Matt at the Cave Studios. He's a beautiful pianist, and we started working on that kind of key heavy stuff, and that was the transition.
Yeah.
That was when I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do.
Yeah. Totally. And yeah, and then like obviously your first song that came out was Young Fun Dumb. Um yeah, and I noticed that like correct me if I'm wrong, so it's a new single then, Night Out. Is that kind of a continuation of it thematically, or
Yeah, totally, man. So
yeah.
my whole thing is we got an album on the way. What if life is just a movie?
Yeah.
We're aiming for early 24 now.
Okay.
Um, and everything links. So on the album, the tracks link, the videos are linking. It will be one long short film by the end of it. Um, and I'm hoping that when you listen to the full album, it makes sense and you get that kind of blend of all of it piecing together.
Yeah. And one thing that I noticed, like, so the first single then, Young Fun Dumb, it kind of has it's sort of like it kind of reminds me of like a prom in a way, and it's kind of like it's like wallflowers, like teenage wallflowers, kind of like
Yeah,
looking at each other from afar. The next single then, I know, is kind of the video. It sort of it sort of jumps like into like the middle of a relationship already, and kind of it seems from the music from the video, kind of an established relationship. It was sort of remind me, and I don't know if this was like an influence or not, but it was remind me of the Before trilogy, Before Sunshine, Before Sunrise, and Before Midnight, I think, which was about like
yeah,
the development of relationship over several years.
yeah.
Um,
So
yeah, was that an influence or
that wasn't a specific influence, but certainly that kind of coming of age influence plays heavily throughout this album. You know, it's I'm fascinated with that like period. You know, that's been the last kind of 5 years for me, really.
yeah,
That transition from being a teenager going into adulthood, and I've just written about my experiences, but also, you know, it's not direct, it's not auto kind of biographical in that sense. It's definitely in elements kind of heightened, etc. You know.
sure. Do you mind me asking actually how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 21.
Okay, so you would have like kind of your early adulthood then, I guess, would have been affected by like COVID.
Oh yeah, yeah, like
Yeah,
weird, you know, definitely didn't have the generic kind of turning 18
yeah,
um uh life that other people had. Like funny enough you mentioned that. That's when we started this.
yeah,
It was like so many artists, you know, we had nothing to do. So it was like let's Zoom call and keep busy.
yeah.
And that is how we wrote Night Out in COVID.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and Young Van Damme.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
what was the lockdown measures like where you were? Like, were you able to go to anything at all, or was it just completely dead?
Yeah, it was pretty dead. I worked in a supermarket at the time, so that was my kind of only time that I left the house.
Okay.
That kept me sane, really. Um, but yeah, it was very weird, very heavily locked down, um, loads of distance from friends, family, like we all had, you know.
Yeah.
But it was certainly so weird that I remember initially it started, I was at college at the time, and they were like, we might be off for a couple of weeks, and that couple of weeks turned into a couple of years.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I
Very
think a
weird.
lot of people have experiences like that. And yeah, but what I'm interested specifically, I guess, like from your perspective, is that like it really feels like, in with your music kind of being influenced by sort of coming of age. It's like, your coming of age is so atypical for most people. Like, I was already an adult by the time the lockdowns happened. So, I lost a few years too. But I mean, it seems like really that kind of like transition, I would have went insane if I was like, on the precipice of like turning 18, and then it's like, oh, you can't go to bars, you can't go to nightclubs, you can't do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was so weird. I remember my 18th birthday was a curry with my parents
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
house. You
Yeah.
know, like that's not your normal experience. You know, no gigs to go to, no movies to go and see. It was so strange, you know. And just adapting to that, I think for everyone, you know, it was a total change that no one understood.
Yeah. But the reason I bring it up is because you think like as someone yourself, as you were saying about like making music about the transition from adolescence to adulthood. I mean, like, do you find that having a kind of different perspective than like a lot of the world might have, adds a unique perspective?
Totally, especially in relationships.
Yeah,
You know, my partner at the time, like I couldn't see her.
yeah,
You know, it was like we couldn't meet up in that aspect. We couldn't live together like we were You couldn't go out for a meal. Yeah, it was totally that. It kind of drove me insane. That was when, thoughts came around like we're still young, or eventually when lockdown restrictions started happening, things like night out could be written.
Yeah.
But then we were still in masks and still, um, social distancing and all that. So it's definitely weird. I went from seeing seeing my partner every single day to speaking on FaceTime.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think like so many people, and again, this is I think interesting as well. Is like I think a lot of like friendships and relationships and stuff just kind of fell by the wayside very unceremoniously during that time too, where it's just like you just kind of didn't see people, and then they were kind of out of your life and stuff like that. I think everyone has experience with that, and I think again like that's very, I don't know, interesting. Like because again, I'm speaking as an adult, but like when you're on that kind of like very tender age, it's like I don't know, that's like really massive thing. So I just find it unique anyway. And I think like again, I'm interested in that perspective too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I definitely realize how different that was now when I talk to people that are a bit older than me and
Yeah.
stuff. And they talk about like, oh, my 18th was mental, and stuff like that. And I sort of sit there and go, wow, how weird was it that we didn't actually get to experience that? My kind of age group, my sister did, she's a couple of years below me. Her
Yeah.
her adolescent kind of period is completely different to mine.
Yeah. Let's talk about Night Out then. So, this
Yeah.
is your latest single, came out about 2 weeks ago now, right?
Mm.
And yeah, it's I I'm such an idiot, dude. So I just listened to the song like two or three times before I kind of went, hold on, I like rewound it, and I just realized how like much the song doesn't actually change. It's very consistent throughout. There's at about 1:15 a drum beat comes in, and
Mm.
that's about it. I mean, it's a very consistent song. It's like yeah. I was wondering what the reasoning was for that in terms of the musicality.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, I love this idea. We got those chords. They came out of absolutely nowhere, Matt started playing these and I sort of went, please change it here, make it. But our thing is let's write music in a major key, but it's really quite deep.
Yeah,
That's always been my goal. Um, Major key, but sad lyrics.
yeah,
So that was definitely our process. And I wanted this song to be simple because it's a very personal song to me, by far the most personal song on the album.
yeah,
And I think it's repetitive, but it's repetitive in the idea of like, I remember it's about a specific night out. And for me, it was like the weirdest moment of my life that night out. And it was just the memory of that. I didn't want it to be any more than what it is.
yeah. Do you,
Yeah.
do you find do you find it uncomfortable to talk about personal things when it comes to your songwriting? Not even like when you're bringing it to the public, but even say bringing it to your fellow members. Or are you okay with that? Like, how do you feel about that?
For me, it's a release. I think, that is like any art, I feel like if it's authentic, if it's real, then there's something about it that I love.
Yeah,
So it's not easy to open up, not easy. But me, Matt, Jeff, we've got a relationship now where I feel like I could go to them about anything
yeah,
and just talk about it.
yeah. As a songwriter who's very interested in, obviously, as you're talking about the concept of your album, you're obviously very interested in storytelling. You're very interested in the lyrics of your music.
Mm.
I was wondering, how do you feel that kind of uh sort of plays in our sort of bite-sized attention spans of nowadays, and how for example, everything's about the 20 seconds you can get on TikTok or the 20 seconds on your Instagram story. As someone who wants to do sort of more expansive stuff than that, how do you feel that your music kind of relates to that?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. the TikTok side of things, 20 seconds is such a short amount of time to grab anyone's attention.
Absolutely.
I think that the challenge that we've often said while writing is we can't we've got to do a half chorus on this one. We've got to, we can't have a long mid late. We can't do this because we need it to kind of fit in that 2.5 minute bracket.
Yeah, totally.
Which is a shame on some aspects because, but we've broken that many times album wise,
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a difficult thing to get it. But I feel like we have choruses that are pretty repetitive in that nature. One thing I like the idea of, like any Taylor Swift song, you hear it once and
Yeah.
and that's something we've tried to do.
So you're very influenced by Taylor Swift.
I think she's great, man. Like,
Oh yeah,
really awesome. Great songwriter.
totally.
Uh, yeah, incredible.
Yeah, no, actually, and I think that's an interesting thing too. Is that like I think sometimes when people get to a certain level of celebrity, in a way, it kind of overtakes them as an artist in a sense. I think Taylor Swift is an example of that. Yeah, I mean, I think there are like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain necessarily, but I feel like some people get a bit glib when someone reaches a certain level of fame and popularity about their actual art, no matter how good it
Yeah,
is. If that makes sense, you know what I mean?
yeah, definitely. I found that with the latest offering from Ed Sheeran.
Okay, yeah,
I listened to that album and I was like, this is amazing.
yeah,
I was like, this is a great album. And I think there's a thing for a long time where it's like, oh, Ed Sheeran,
yeah,
he's
sure,
getting big now.
yeah,
But like I loved it.
yeah.
I was like, here we go.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's the thing. Like I don't know. I find it like yeah, I don't know. But again, as an artist, you ever won't not worry about that, I guess, but like do you ever kind of consider that maybe if the project was to get to such an extent that you were I guess kind of popular, would you be interested in the kind of fame aspect of it, or are you just like I just want to be an artist. I don't want like the press or the kind of publicity.
Yeah, I would hate it if someone was like only interested in it from the aspect of being a celebrity.
Sure. Yeah.
I just that doesn't interest me at all.
Yeah.
Um, if someone came up to me and was like genuinely like, I love your music, then like if I saw my favorite artist down the road right now, I'd talk to them about their music. I wouldn't
Yeah.
talk to them because I love them as a celebrity.
Sure. Totally.
So there's nothing wrong with that either.
No.
Like everyone gets like starstruck and stuff like that. But for me, it's about having a good project to share more than being famous.
Yeah. And that's something I'm interested in is like I always think about that too, like where a lot of artists I know are actually quite contradictory, they're quite introverted and they're quite private. And yet like they're in a position where they're kind of getting up on stage each night and they're the center of attention for, a couple of like for an hour or so. And it's like it always seems to me like an interesting contradiction where it's like people who have kind of who want to express themselves artistically and who want to show their music that they wrote and just show off their music to the world, they simultaneously have to kind of deal with the prospect of becoming famous. Do you ever think about that, or are you just again focus on your art more so?
Yeah, I feel like if I think about that, I'll overthink it too much.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like focus on the art. Let's make sure we've got the best possible project to share.
Yeah.
But certainly I relate to what you said about being quite introverted. I feel like that myself,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem like talking, meeting people, etc. But there is a difference between going up on stage for an hour and a half and putting on a show.
Yeah.
I'm not going to walk off stage and do what I've just done for an hour.
Absolutely. No, I get what you're saying.
It's going to be like I'm probably going to walk off stage, have a beer, sit down in a chair, and be like, "Oh,
Yeah, totally. No, totally. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So, just go back a little bit to your album. You're talking about what if life is just a movie. I mean, yeah. How long have you been working on it? I mean, what and what stage of the production are you at the moment?
yeah." So I'm pretty proud to say I think it's done.
Okay,
I think
nice.
it's finishing touches now.
Yeah.
So, we've got a couple of things to piece together, a couple of story aspects that I want to tie up.
Hmm.
All in all, I think the structure and the songs are there, which
Okay.
is brilliant. And in terms of length on working on it, I think, as I mentioned with the earlier stuff, it started, 2018 COVID times, but really things started changing about a year and a half ago. The concept started coming. Listen, it's a concept album. It's um definitely, we end with end credits. We start it with What If Life is a Movie.
Yeah.
There's a halfway check-in. It's all um it's so theatrical, and that is my background. So yeah, it's but about a year and a half, I'd say.
Yeah. And as someone who has the kind of a cinematic, I guess, frame of mind for this album, when it came to doing the music videos, were you influenced by certain pictures and saying, okay, I want this? Because I know it's actually like we were talking about the Young Fun Dumb video. It had a kind of sort of grainy, like actually meant to look like a video recording of like
Yeah.
of like a what do you call it, of a prom, I guess. And then like for the follow up for Night Out, I mean, it kind of has it reminds me of I don't know, I can't think of the director specifically, but it reminds me of like in like detective movies when it's like, they're thinking of their lover.
Yeah,
Has that kind of framing to it.
yeah, totally. That was definitely intentional with Young Fun Dumb to
Yeah.
make it feel like that VHS flashback sort of feel, like we emphasized the kind of 2018 banner,
Yeah.
when I left school. Um, so all that stuff's there, and there's a jump when we get to Night Out. But I think we'll incorporate that footage from Young Fun Dumb down the line.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
So,
yeah.
what were your kind of, I guess, references then when it came to making the video? How much involvement did you have in terms of saying like, okay, this is how we want it?
Yeah. So yeah, quite a good amount actually. We took a lot of meetings. I mean, Tom, Tom Nibbs over at Silent K Productions, he's such a talented man. So lots of chats with him about the concept. I kind of came to him and said, listen, this is ambitious.
Yeah.
It's going to be one long short film, in which he kind of jumped on board and said, awesome, you know. Um, but yeah, involvement wise, I'd said, let's start it off as a young couple and let's show it developing. Let's show a breakup down the line, which we'll do. Let's show, all of these things, but we're slowly working it out as we go along. That's the fun part about this. We can go in any direction now.
Yeah. Now,
Um, yeah.
now when it comes to performing live, then do you have that team in mind, or do you just kind of put the songs in order that you think will work for a live set?
Yeah, I'm certainly like when we've got an album out, um, the live show is going to be a big thing for me.
Yeah.
We've started on, telling the story live, I've played a few shows now where I've played with the order. So there's been different things. But like any live performance, it's doing it in an album order won't work.
Sure.
So we have had to jiggle it about a bit.
Yeah.
But my dream is to have a budget to make this absolutely as theatrical as it possibly could be.
Mhm.
You know, I want to tell that story with lighting, with like costume, stuff like that, and really get it
Yeah.
in that world.
Do you think you could do that like the way when you're I guess like of a smaller act, like the kind of venues you play are a little less consistent. Sometimes you play like venues
Yeah.
with like a big stage, and then next night you might be playing like a bar or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Yeah.
the thing. We have to alter it for where we are.
Yeah.
So when we play a bar venue and places like that, um, we deal with what we've got really.
Yeah.
We work with what we've got. We want to put on a show. That's my main thing, and people walk away having had a good night.
Yeah.
If people enjoy one song of the set, I feel like I've done my job.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
my question is like when it kind of comes to, like if you were, like more kind of like I guess established acts, let's say, when they're performing kind of consistent theaters of a similar size, of a similar stage, dimensions and stuff like that, just the practical side of things.
Yeah.
There's that kind of consistency where they go, okay, the banner is going to look like this and the lighting's going to do this. And, but when you're kind of, I guess like touring and you're doing, venues that aren't consistent like that, like yeah, would you be willing to sacrifice like the stage production in, or
Yeah,
how do you, sorry.
yeah, totally. I feel like you have to, don't you?
Yeah.
I feel like you don't have a choice in that matter. Which I love as well, because that actually to some degree allows us to be more creative.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, okay, we don't have the capacity to do this big scale production. We're not at that level yet.
Sure.
In order to get to that level, we've got to start somewhere, and this is what we've got.
Yeah.
So I think adapting to what we've got is something that's fun,
Yeah.
that we all enjoy.
One other thing I wanted to ask you about was actually vinyl. So, I mean, as a storyteller, do you find the idea of vinyl, of pressing on vinyl to be interesting? Because this is something I've always appreciated. Because, like, when I grew up, I would grow up with like CDs and the digital. And then once I got into vinyl, kind of in my 20s, what I found very interesting was the concept of the A and B side, where it's like you have to kind of think basically twice about the structure of the album. And yeah, for yourselves, I mean, do you think like, that kind of, to put it in cinematic terms, that kind of intermission after the end of the A side, is this so factors like, do you find that kind of, I guess again, the practical factors kind of interesting to incorporate into your art?
Totally, man. Like vinyl is my favorite thing. As you took the kind of words out of my mouth there, A and B side.
Mhm.
I love that. I love the looking at it and going, oh my God, what's next on B?
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, definitely down the line, that is what we wanna do.
Yeah.
And it's structured like that. The whole thing is definitely structured to be like that. It's kind of weird because it is structured for your Spotify, your Apple Music, Amazon, etc.
Mhm.
But also it makes so much more sense on a vinyl or a CD,
Yeah.
because especially vinyl, because you can't skip it.
Yeah. I was thinking about that too, because like you have to save the narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like one of those things that I feel like you'd get the best experience not having that ability to go, oh, we'll go to the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like going to the cinema and not being able to fast forward or something.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Netflix, it's easy to go, oh, I know this bit or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
One thing I think is interesting too about the kind of rise in vinyl is that I think from a musician's perspective, I mean, I think it's very it's easy to sort of go, okay, I'll stream this on Spotify for a half an hour or whatever. But it's another thing I think when you actually go, no, I want some permanence with this. You know what I mean? I want to own this as a product, and I
Yeah.
want this to kind of, in a way, I feel like what you own on vinyl is sort of an extension of who you are and the kind of music you like. And I think like when it comes to Spotify, you can be a lot more versatile. You can be there's a little less commitment there, if that makes sense. Do you find that kind of the prospect of someone even wanting to own your music on vinyl to be kind of flattering, or
Yeah, for me, that's like the biggest kind of compliment you could give me,
totally?
the fact that you want to invest your money into a product created by me, by our team.
Yeah.
Um, there's nothing more special than opening a vinyl and looking at the artwork.
Yeah.
Or the first thing I do is open it and see the sleeve and think this is wicked.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my first vinyls I ever got was A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships, the 1975 album, and it had a message on the vinyl. And I was just like, that is wicked.
Yeah.
That is absolutely wicked. So many people are not going to see that.
Yeah.
But the idea of like a select number of people picking it up, putting it up in the light and being like, wow,
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah, for me that extra touch is just um so awesome.
Yeah. So you guys would actually be concerned with all that, like the packaging, the distribution, well, not distribution, but the kind of, yeah, all the kind of auxiliary things that like surrounding not just the music that's on there. So that would be a focus to you guys as well. Yeah.
Yeah, totally, totally. If
Yeah.
if like anything, like any start out artistic project, if the budget makes that possible,
Sure.
then 100% I want to make this um something that you can open and be like, welcome to the world.
Yeah.
You know, it's as simple as that.
Do you ever think of as you were talking about, you're making the kind of short film essentially. Do you ever feel like find a way to try and combine the two into a physical package or
Yeah, I mean that would be wicked, if we could do like DVDs or something like that.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean if there was a way of doing some sort of like is it like a zine or something where you could like open it up and there's like a DVD and a CD that comes with it?
yeah,
How cool would that be?
yeah.
I would love to do that.
Yeah. No, actually, it'd be kind of cool, like even as promo, doing like a screening or something. That'd be kind of cool too, actually.
You know that's on my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that's been on my mind for a little while. When we're done with the videos, um, I want to sit a few people down, select few people,
Yeah.
and be like, you're the first like people to see this
Yeah.
all the way through.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I guess like wrapping up then, is there I think I've asked everything I had. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up or
Yeah, I just think, I mean, for me, it's like the acknowledgement of the people involved. I want to make sure that everyone is recognized for their work. So I think Matt, who I write these songs with, amazing guy. Likewise with Jeff at the label, Tom, Ethan with the BTS shots, everything like that. So, and George, my housemate, who is in the videos,
yeah.
amazing for those people. So just kind of recognizing their talent.
That's perfect, man. Thanks very much for your time. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
likewise. Thank
And
you.
best of luck with everything you have coming up.
I really appreciate you talking to me, mate.
Oh no, dude, absolutely.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed this, by the way.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Thanks very much. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too, mate. See you later.
Bye. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We hope you enjoyed and stay tuned for more.